Hotel History is created for adult audiences. Content may not be suitable for all listeners. Discretion is advised. You're listening to Hotel History. We take you with us through the sordid history and scandals of some of the world's most famous and infamous hotels. I'm Dieta.
And I'm Yael. Let's get started.
We have a really exciting episode today that's a departure from what we usually do, but definitely still in the realm of hotels, lodging, accommodation. We have Bryce Albright with us. She's the executive director of the Dude Ranchers Association. And I'm just going to let her tell us all about it because it sounds so fascinating. So Bryce, give us a little bit about who you are, your background, and what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Dieta. I'm excited to be here and get to kind of teach and tell the story of dude ranching a little bit. So, like you mentioned, my name is Bryce Albright. I'm the executive director of the National Dude Ranchers Association, and I grew up in dude ranching. So I've been with the association about 8 years and have led the organization for about 7. But I grew up doing this. And so grew up on a dude ranch. My folks have a very deep history with dude ranching. And it was ultimately because I worked on a dude ranch that led me to this job. It's been just a huge part of my life. You know, I met my husband on a dude ranch. I got married on that same ranch. You know, both my girls have been on that ranch. Like it's a very special, dude ranches in general are a very special place. But the association itself is incredibly historical, as are many of our member ranches. And the association itself is actually celebrating 100 years in 2026.
Wow.
Whoa. Congratulations.
Yes. Thanks. It is a huge milestone.
So for our listeners who maybe have never stayed at a dude ranch or even heard of a dude ranch, what is it?
Yes. So we get this question a lot, which in our world, it's kind of like, what? But we obviously deal with it every day. So a dude ranch is essentially a vacation destination where people go and experience the cowboy way of life and Western adventure. So it includes all DRA member ranches include meals, lodging, and most activities, including horseback riding. And it really just allows people to immerse themselves into the Western culture and a lot of the history that surrounds these areas as well.
That's so cool. So if you go, like, you get to, the whole thing is to immerse yourself. And it's not just staying and looking, like, it's definitely a separate thing from just visiting. It's immersion.
For sure.
Which is
Yeah.
so cool.
I mean, your daily is going to be going on trail rides, fly fishing, hiking, exploring the area, learning about the history of the area, just learning about everything that has to do with the ranch, seeing the ranch operations. And if you want to get hands-on, there's experiences for that as well. You know, if you want to be on the working side of a ranch and kind of have more of that hands-on experience, we have those type of ranches. And then also we have, the ranches that maybe aren't for those people, but still want to go kind of enjoy that cowboy culture and maybe still get a spa treatment or sit in a nice hot tub or sit by the pool or something while you're there.
It has something for everyone.
It does.
Like I want to do the experiences. Deanna knows, like I feel like I've been deprived of all this my whole life because I grew up in a city, and
Yes.
I love horses, but I'll be honest, I'm slightly scared of them.
That's all right. They're a big animal with their own, mind, and you can only control so much. We always, one of my favorite things I always tell people is like horseback riding is a sport of its own, where the sport itself, being the horse, has a mind of its own, which is totally different than any other sport you're ever going to participate in.
Yes. That's what when I went horseback riding, the woman that was like leading us, I'm like, so how can I get my horse not to gallop away? And she's like, it will do whatever it wants. Like,
there's some control, and thankfully dude horses are incredibly well trained, but it's still something you have to be very aware of, and so it is a little intimidating, but it is also such a magical experience too.
So where did the idea of the dude ranch originate?
So it's got a deep, deep history, which is really cool. The first idea of a dude ranch came in the late 1880s or early 1880s, excuse me, and it was actually started by the Eaton's brothers, and they were actually from back east, and they came out west, actually to Medora, North Dakota, and decided to start a cattle ranch. Well, they wrote letters back home and, of course, to their family and friends, and people got really interested in where they were, what they were doing. And so they started to come visit. And they were just hosting these people. They were feeding them. They were, giving them an experience. They were letting them ride their horses and help work cattle and, maybe even do a little bit of manual labor. Really, it was a genius idea. People were literally paying to come work. Really, the idea of a dude ranch was born then because they got to the point where it got expensive. And so they decided that, hey, we need to start charging people something to come out here. And the original fee that they charged was $10 for a week per person. And which in that time was still, quite a bit of money.
That was a lot. That was a lot of money.
Especially after getting out west from back east. And so, yeah. And then from there, it kind of grew. That ranch is still in operation today by the same family. It's just in a different location. The cattle market really hit a slump in the early 1900s, and the winters in Medora, North Dakota were really, really rough. And so they actually picked up their operation and moved over to Wolf, Wyoming, which is outside of Sheridan at the base of the Bighorn Mountains. And yeah, 140 years plus later, it's still in operation today, which is really cool.
Whoa.
And so that's where the idea of the Dude Ranch was born. And then the association itself in 1926, by this time, there was multiple ranches kind of popping up that were doing this, working ranches that were turning into hospitality establishments and hosting guests. And so they came together with Northern Pacific Railroad, because that's how people were getting out here, as well as the national park officials, game and wildlife officials, and then the dude ranchers themselves joined in Bozeman, Montana, actually, for a meeting in September of 1926 and formed the association. And it was Larry Laram of the Valley Ranch outside of Cody, Wyoming, who's kind of known as the father of dude ranching. It was really kind of his idea to bring all these people together and standardize these practices. And so that's when the association was born. And here we are 100 years later. It's pretty incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So it sounds like it was, I was thinking, maybe dude ranching got started because ranches were having a hard time economically, but it kind of sounds like it started because of the fun of it, and then later maybe they just took advantage of the economics.
And when the cattle market got rough and cattle weren't worth anything, and it was way more expensive to raise them than it was the profit you were making, they did have to find different ways to kind of subsidize income. And so that is how the hospitality side grew with a lot of these properties. But it was just because it was fun and it was an experience that people didn't know anything about, and the Western way of life and the cowboys were a very romanticized culture and lifestyle. And so to be able to introduce people to that lifestyle was just, it was kind of a hole in one. They, like I said, they really were genius. I mean, in the way they did it. And it's obviously a model that has sustained time. And it has survived. I was just talking to somebody else about this the other day. If you think about it, you look back over 1926 to 2026, the largest world economic events have happened during that 100 years. Mm-hmm. You've got both world wars. You've got the Vietnam War, the Korean War. You have even go before that, the Great Depression. You have the stock market crash of '08. You have the global pandemic, most recently. And dude ranch has survived all of that. And quite frankly, for the most part, they came out on top of most of that, most recently, especially of the pandemic.
Yes, there's no better way to socially distance than to go into to a ranch hundreds of miles away.
Created social distancing.
Yeah. So are there any, besides the Eatons who really got it going, are there any pioneering personalities or other ranches who helped shape this industry over the past 100 years?
Yeah, so definitely Larry Laram. He was kind of the epitome of what dude ranches are now. Many of them are still family owned and operated, but we do have many ranches that people came and vacationed on a dude ranch and then decided that that's what they wanted to do. So they bought a dude ranch, and that's what he did. Is he came out to the Valley Ranch when he was in his teenage years, met Buffalo Bill, and then came back with a business partner and built the Valley Ranch, built it to an incredible historical piece, especially in the dude ranch industry. And yeah, the Eatons were very instrumental. But one person that kind of gets pushed off to the side, which they really shouldn't, because he was a very influential figure in U.S. history, is Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt actually was friends with the Eatons brothers. And he came out and visited their ranch multiple times in North Dakota and loved it, fell in love with it. So he bought a neighboring ranch, and it was Custer something ranch. And it was kind of in that same general area on the western border of North Dakota. He is, like I said, super underrated, and he actually helped a lot in kind of making the industry boom, because he started talking about it, and then he went to Yellowstone and then established the national parks. But really the reason he got out west was because of the Eaton's brothers.
Wow.
Wow.
Of course, like I knew that he had a big hand in the national parks, but I had never heard about his part in dude ranches.
Not many people do. I mean, it's pretty kind of under the rug, but if you look it up, it pops up. He was great friends with William and Howard Eaton, and
that does not surprise me. That's such a Teddy Roosevelt thing to be into.
Right, exactly. Like, he was an icon of the West,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there were many other people too, but as far as like big names, he was really a big one. And then obviously, like later in, as time went on, of course, funny enough, Billy Crystal is a huge name that, people flock to because of City Slickers.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, Kevin Costner and Taylor Sheridan and all those guys behind the Yellowstone series and then all the other series that Taylor Sheridan has created. But yeah, there's a lot of big names, but really, within the history of the association, there are many monumental figures. The second president after Larry Laram, who held the longest term, was Charlie Moore, who started a ranch outside of Dubois, Wyoming, which is still in operation today. You have the Turner family, which is outside of Jackson, Wyoming. They're fourth or fifth generation running that ranch. They're actually celebrating their centennial this year as well. You've got Ernest Miller, who was of the Elkhorn Ranch in Montana, A.H. Kroonquist, who was of Camp Sina in Red Lodge, Montana, and there was a group of people that were at that first meeting and really kind of dug their boots in, if you will, and really made sure that the association held up and its standard. And kind of in today's world, Russell True is a really big name. His family started and owns the White Stallion Ranch in Arizona, outside of Tucson. And then he has really become kind of a steward of dude ranches. He actually helps operate and manage 6 dude ranches in our association. I think that's the current number.
Oh, wow.
So he's a real, big name too. He will definitely go down in history of the association. So yeah. And I mean, then you look back at the executive directors themselves. My predecessor was here for 20 years. She brought the dude ranches into kind of the digital age, and God bless her, because I can't imagine trying to get 100 dude ranchers to build a website and teach them how to do it, so it's really amazing. I mean, the history and the people, that have helped this 100-year legacy for sure.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, there's so much there that it's quite fascinating history that I'm so happy we're spreading the word about.
Yes, and we appreciate it because I mean, so many people, I tell them what I do, or we talk about dude ranches, and they're like, what?
It's not common, but I do feel, and maybe because I'm in my own, and me and Deanna are in our own little bubble of right now, we did a lot of road trips and we're passing all these ranches, and I feel there is this moment happening where I feel like dude ranches, the West in general is like people are starting to
Cowboys cool.
Yeah, Cowboys are cool again. I don't think they ever not been cool, but like I feel like there's a resurgence of it. And then we were looking up Tumbling River
Ranch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And then it just happened to be someone we know is there. We're like, wait a second, what's in the water? What's in the river?
Small world.
Yeah. What did a typical dude ranch vacation look like 100 years ago compared to today? Are they doing the same things? Can you
A lot of them are,
relive history?
which is pretty amazing. I mean, if you look back, obviously 100 years ago, modern changes were not there. Electricity was pretty limited, especially in accommodations. Indoor plumbing, obviously. Swimming pools weren't really a thing. You know, if you swam, you got to go in the creek or the lake, you know, maybe a pond if you were lucky. On the ranching side of it, irrigation, haying, you know, that kind of forage production was different. But honestly, the experience itself, it was good food. It was hospitality, people that wanted you there. They wanted to teach you about the Western world and the cowboy way of life. They wanted to teach you about the horse, you know, and so that heartwarming and really strong atmosphere of connection was very important. And that's very much so still prominent today, of course. But also, yeah, they were horseback riding, they were fishing, they were hiking, and really, I mean, it was anything outside. And you were moving cattle, you were helping on the ranch, you know, whatever they kind of asked of you, you know, you did, or whatever you wanted to do. You know, if you didn't want to do that day, then you could just sit on your, you know, porch of your cabin or the lodge or whatever and just relax. And that's the beauty of it, you know, and that's still very much so today as well. And so you look back to 1926, and yes, the clothing was a little, you know, dare I say, more exuberant. It really kind of was at that time, maybe more into like the 1930s and 40s. But you know, you these people dressed up. They bought all sorts of, you know, fancy clothing, and you know, this was their vacation, and they were going to go live the life of a cowboy for a week plus. Usually it was more, and then they got the opportunity to live it out, you know, live truly what a lot of people actually deemed at the time the American dream. Because yes, they were, you know, living their life back in New York or Pennsylvania or wherever back east, but then they got to go live out what was actually a dream out west. And today that's still so true. The magic of dude ranches is very much so still alive and the same. And that hospitality is a huge part of it. Of course, there's still horses. You know, there's horseback riding, fly fishing, hiking, bird watching, wildlife excursions. You know, now there's more deemed national parks and people can go explore those. More so now, you see different activities. Of course, you kind of evolved. You see shooting sports and river rafting, ATV rides. Maybe, you know, we've got a couple ranches that do quilting retreats. You know, it's a variety of different things, but really the base and the core of the vacation itself is the same, which is very rare and something that very few places can actually say.
I think people who want to not think about an itinerary, but want someone to be like, hey, these are all the options. It sounds like there's so many options. Like you can't get bored. I wouldn't get bored.
No.
You can only get bored if you try.
Yeah.
If you want to be bored, then you can do that. But it's pretty hard.
I really feel like my parents would love going to a dude ranch.
Your dad for sure.
My dad for sure. He grew up like, you know, in a small village in Romania with horses and nature, and he fishes and everything. Yeah. And my mom from Brooklyn, she's like me, where she's like, I just want to move to Wyoming and live on a ranch. And I'm like, Mom, you have never been on a ranch in your entire life and you want to move there? What are you talking about? Let's do an introduction. So I might, because I've been like encouraging them to go on vacation. I'm like, this might be the place. This really?
Yeah.
Oh, this is
honestly,
so cool.
And it's, I mean, from an affordability side, it's all inclusive. So, you know, you're not having to nickel and dime everything. You're not having to, you know, find a place for meals or plan the next activity for the next day or figure out where you're going to stay, or, you know, it's all done for you, which is, you know, if you have kids, even if you don't have kids, trying to plan a vacation is so overwhelming. And so really, you just have to figure out your travel, book the ranch you want and figure out your travel. Then
what's a good, sorry, I'm getting a little off topic, but what would you recommend for a beginner of dude ranching? For
honestly,
the
beauty of dude ranching is any level. any ranch at any level. We do have a few ranches, like some of our working ranches, we say that's probably not the introductory experience that people want. It's something that usually they do later in life, or they've ridden before, or they just want something different than trail rides. But honestly, any of our ranches, and that's what's amazing about dude ranches. And it's not all dude ranches, but all the ranches in our association, beginner to advanced, and especially horseback riding. You could have never touched a horse before, or you could have been riding your whole life. And there's going to be an experience that's going to be fitting to what you're looking for. So the safety guidelines are really big on dude ranches, especially our ranches. And so, that really kind of makes that beginner ride it in a comfort level that is going to, allow them to succeed.
So we talk a lot about, of course, the history of all of the hotels that we cover. They always have different stories that have become, almost part of their folklore as a landmark. So do any dude ranches have famous stories or something that they tell, their guests every time that they come, that like, this is who we are kind of thing?
Yeah, I think there's multiple. I mean, every ranch has their own history and stories, of course, and all that are very subjective to their area, obviously. Of course, the Eatons. I mean, you could write history books on that place, literally books, plural, but like, just a couple off the top of my head, like the Triangle X Ranch outside of Jackson, Hole, Wyoming. They've filmed multiple movies at that ranch. And because of the Tetons and the proximity to the Grand Tetons, there's Rancho de la Osa, which is down right on the Mexican border in Arizona, where there's a cannonball in the wall from where the fights were. And Pancho Villa has history there. It was during that era. There's White Stallion Ranch is another one where multiple movies. I mean, multiple movies have been filmed. Up north, I mean, Montana, there's a huge historical factor there, obviously, with like C.M. Russell. And then, we've got one of the neatest places in New Mexico. Canyon Madness Ranch has a very dedicated and large Indian dwelling cave that was built and created by the Navajo Indians. I mean, and then in Montana, you kind of have something similar. I can't even make this up, and they do not advertise it like they should, in my opinion. But at Blacktail Ranch, they have an Ice Age era cave. It's a cave. It's underground. They have an entire museum of all the things that they have removed from this cave. And it is, I mean, from saber-toothed tiger skulls to different ice tools it is wild, wild. And you literally climb down this. They've got it set up now to where they have electricity run down there, and you crawl through it. I mean, it is so cool. And I mean, talk about the history there. Like, nobody even knows all of the history there. So yeah. I mean, these are off the map, undiscovered destinations, truly. If you think about it, there's very few people that'll ever see that in the world and get to go experience that. And so the history and the folklore of these places is just amazing. And that's one of the best things about dude ranches, is truly the heritage that they preserve, but also the stories they tell. Like, and some of them may be stories, but the history, that is such a huge part. And I think any rancher will, dude rancher or working ranch, cattle ranch, whatever it is, without the history, they wouldn't be where they are. So they really do strive to keep that alive.
I had really no idea that it went that deep. Like,
it's amazing,
cave wise, even, physically that deep. It's beautiful, because what I'm understanding of dude ranches is that it's this very American association. It has a lot of history, but it's small families running it, or a history of families running it. It's preserves nature, preserves history. I mean, people should be flocking to this. This is like what we all dream of. Is, I don't know, for me, I'm always thinking about like how to support that kind of stuff.
Well, we appreciate it. Yeah, because preservation is a huge part of what we do. I mean, we have a very loyal clientele, which is amazing with dude ranches, but it is kind of a I hate to say dying breed because it's not. I mean, there isn't it's really not a dwindling industry by any means. It is thriving. Yes, there's not as many dude ranches as there once was because they are being sold off. You know, families don't want to carry on the legacy. The kids don't want to take it over. Or maybe they have different careers and they just can't come back to take it over and mom and dad are done, you know, and so it is
Yeah.
getting put up for sale or it has sold. But there is some great, you know, corporations, investment companies, foundations that are purchasing, you know, these ranches to keep them alive. And that's so
Oh, okay.
important. Like our Dude Ranch Foundation. So we have a 501c3 nonprofit arm of the association. And a huge focus of theirs is preservation, conservation, preserving the history obviously of these places, and then also, you know, through their scholarship programs, their horse safety programs. Like it's very important to them that they help generate and encourage and also build the next generation. And that's what they do, you know, like I said, through scholarships or the
It's
horse safety and
amazing.
wrangler training programs, any of that.
I hope no one's buying it and making them into data center.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. I mean, there are places that are buying them and turning them private. That's one of the
Yeah.
hardest things we deal with historically and just kind of economically is people buy them and keep them as private retreats or they just hold them as a real estate in holding, which is tough because, you know, of course, a lot of the time it's the very historical ones that happens to. Like Tumbling River Ranch, for example, though, like you guys had mentioned them, they're not a current member of the association, but they were for many years. And what happened there is a corporation bought it, but they underwent a 2-year renovation and, you know, turned it into this incredible luxury property now, which is still a dude ranch. You know, they still have horses, they still have fly fishing, you know, they still have very much so that persona, and it is a dude ranch, but, you know, they just went in and gave it a lot of love and a lot of the TLC that it needed. And we love to see that. You know, we love to see when that happens. It's just not always the case.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah.
We'll just have to spread awareness. That's our job.
Yes, we spread the word about it and let people fall in love with these places, and then, you know, they want to.
Hollywood has romanticized dude ranches for decades. So
Yeah,
how accurate are those portrayals?
not very.
What?
Shocked.
No, shocking, huh? We actually just produced we didn't produce it, but we worked with Wyoming PBS on a documentary called Call of the West. And it premiered at our 100th anniversary convention this previous January in Billings, Montana. And it's a phenomenal film. It's about a 45-minute documentary about the history of dude ranching. And they talk a lot in that about how, you know, we don't swim cattle across the river with, you know, Billy Crystal. We really don't. We don't have a train station. City Slickers, not so much. I mean, the idea of it, yes. We used to have a lot of ranches that did overnight cattle drives. We don't hardly have any anymore. But there is the chance to move cattle and work cattle and enjoy that experience. You know, we don't have train stations. I mean, there are, yes, physical train stations, but we just don't go dump people off the side of the hill, not on purpose anyways. You know, and there's not reining horses, you know, at dude ranches. Your trail horse is more than likely not going to, you know, go running across arena and slide 40 feet. Like
Oh,
you know,
thank God.
yeah, that's a good thing.
Mhm.
You know, dude ranches wish they could afford those type of horses, you know. So there is definitely some misconceptions, but it did, like you said, romanticize the Western industry and that cowboy culture.
So speaking of these movies, and you said a lot of the ranches have had movies filmed there. Are there any, obviously City Slickers, are there any other famous films or TV shows that have impacted the dude ranch industry?
City Slickers was a big one. There was a show at one time on RFD TV. It was called Debbie Dunning's Dude Ranch Roundup, where she went. And if you're not familiar with who Debbie Dunning is, she was the Tool Time girl on Home Improvement with Tim Allen. Yeah, and she did. Gosh, there was 3 seasons, I think,
Oh wow.
of that where she went around and filmed at different dude ranches. And you can look it up on YouTube. It's a great show. She showcases a lot of different dude ranches. And then that one was a big one. Obviously, Yellowstone was huge with Taylor Sheridan. We kind of say that's like the modern day City Slickers. Like that was the resurgence that really kind of brought the dude ranch industry into kind of its next prime, if you will. And then now following, I mean, you've got, well, it was 1883, and then it was 1928, and now it's Madison, and then Dutton Ranch just came out, and all of the Taylor Sheridan series, I mean, have been huge. It's just kind of, I think, developed an appreciation for the West and the wide open spaces and the kind of slower way of life. It definitely doesn't necessarily disclose the hard times and the hardships that come with that way of life, but it does, provide a really good overview of, the beauty of Montana and even Texas. What a lot of people don't know is Yellowstone was actually filmed a large portion of it was filmed in Utah. So,
Oh.
yeah, which Utah is beautiful too. We don't have any
Yes.
ranches in Utah, but it's a gorgeous state, national park
It is,
and
yeah.
all the things. So
I love to hear all the women involved in dude ranching, like you
there's a
and
lot of women, and it's really cool. The women in dude ranching, it's really honestly super impressive. So one of the first women, her name was Cena Hart. And she was actually kind of the history and the story behind Camp Cena, which was one of the first dude ranches within the association. I don't know much about her history, honestly, but I do know that she was a very large part of it. The very first woman president of the association her name was Sarah Stevenson. She was an incredible force, to be reckoned with. And since then, there's been 3 or 4 other women presidents of the
oh
association,
wow.
which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, that wasn't until the 90s that we had our first woman president, but she was wonderful. So as every woman president after has been just amazing. Of course, there was when the term changed from executive secretary to executive director, it actually was usually couples that ran the association. So usually it was a husband and wife team because, one person was doing part of it, so the other one might as well jump in. And then also there's a lot of travel going and seeing these ranches, getting to know the ranchers. It's different now in my era where we have things like Zoom and Google Meet and just even being able to pick up the phone and chat with them or text them, whatever we need to do, email. But back then, I mean, they traveled. That's how they talked to them. That's how they corresponded and helped them and, provided resources and stuff like that. So it was couples. So the first directors were Mark and Amy Grubbs, the first couple that we knew of, anyways. Amy was also a force, to be reckoned with. She was a great lady. And then there was Jim and Bobby Feuderer. Bobby was also another one that was amazing. And then there was Colleen Hodson, who was my predecessor, and she was here for 20 years, which was pretty amazing. And there was a few other people sprinkled in there, of course. There was obviously many of the executive secretaries, were men starting in the beginning, and they were just ones that helped run the organization and keep the association going. And so they were pretty amazing. The women really broke into this industry, but some of the history behind it is really cool. So we have a quilt that actually hangs in our office that was made by all of the women directors. And
Wow.
it was for the 50th anniversary of the association. So that was in 1976. It's a beautiful quilt, and they hand embroidered many of the ranch logos and brands onto this quilt.
Wow.
And actually, what's really cool is fast forward another 50 years after that, one of our ranchers out of Montana, Kelly Kelsey, I'm sorry, made a felt replication, essentially, if you will, of that quilt for the 100th anniversary. And it has the brand of every single member ranch at the time in January 2026 on there. And so both those quilts hang side by side in our office, which is pretty amazing.
That's so cool.
That's so
But
cool.
there was I can't remember exactly what they called it. I want to say they almost maybe called it the homemakers board, but it was the wives of the association. And so wives of a lot of the ranchers, and they had their own group. They had essentially like a board of directors that helped cater to more of the women focused, if you will, activities and parts of the ranch. So the cabins, how the cabins looked, how the beds, the special little touches, whether you put flowers in the room or you had towels or whatever it was, the food and the kitchen, helping run the staff, because that did fall a lot on the women. So much of the business operations themselves did not necessarily fall on the women, but usually they were the ones, as time went on, they were managing the office, checking people out, the reservations, answering the phone, answering questions. And now, fast forward, you still see that pretty regularly, is more of women-based offices, but I think that's kind of, just the times as well. But it was a really cool deal. And then we had a magazine. It was called the Dude Rancher magazine, and it ran for many, many years. It was a quarterly publication, and they used to have the homemakers section in there, and the women would write articles about what they were focusing on at their ranch or what they did that really made a difference. And again, it was just a resource. And the women really just provided a lot of input that in the early days, they weren't, it was not super welcomed. But as time went on, and the association grew, the women became very important, especially like during the wars, because they were the ones running the ranches. And they were the ones trying to figure out how to cut costs in the kitchen and food rations and all of that, So the women play a huge role in the association's history.
It sounds like it. Wow. That's awesome. I love to hear that, because I think when people think of dude ranching, they don't think of a woman.
No, they don't, because of dude, the term dude,
Where is that from? I mentioned before, I was like, when I heard of it, I'm like, dude, it's ranching.
And that's our generation. That's the younger generation turned that term into like a slang term. Originally, the word dude and how that came around was duds was actually the original word of it. And it was an English word. And it talked about clothing, like extraordinary clothing, kind of exuberant clothing, very bright and flashy and nice. And then Levi Jeans had a Dude Ranch line. And it became, the word kind of translated over to dudes, and dudes were very highly dressed, kind of exuberantly dressed men who were out of their element. So they were city folk, that was kind of how it came around. And then really Dude Ranches caught on to that, because it was people coming from back east that were very wealthy, had quite a bit of money, and would dress, by the night, like I was saying, the nicest clothes, the brand new hat, the brand new boots, all of that, and dress up and come to these ranches to play cowboy for a week or more. And so then it translated to dudine, which was actually the women. So that was the women's term. And then dudettes, which is kind of gets translated a lot, but that was actually the kids. That's how they referred to the kids. And so later on, when the term kind of took a different turn and whatnot, the association, even in 1926, they knew that it could have a negative connotation with it being related to men, just dude ranching, but they thought it was a really important part of the name and more of the meaning behind it. And so it stuck. And they kept it in the name. And then as it translated, through the years and whatnot, it actually became more of a surfer term, which I learned the other day. It was actually because of an African-American community in Southern California. They used the word dude as kind of slang, and the surfers picked up on it. And they started using it. And I was like, man, I didn't know that. But yeah, so it's pretty cool.
And then the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles started using it, and the rest is history.
And the rest is history.
And then dude wears my Were movie stars actually regular guests at these ranches? Any presidents, royalty, or surprising guests stayed at any of these ranches?
I'm sure there was. Through the history books, I'm sure there's been presidents stay at dude ranches. Obviously, Teddy Roosevelt was pretty involved. Now you see more like we have a ranch in Montana. That's definitely more of a high-end place where you will see, Kim Kardashian was there, or, I think Oprah Winfrey just did a show up at a dude ranch in Montana. So you get those random people, but we honestly, we love it because it just continues to give us great promotion. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I do think that I have also watched like on YouTube and stuff that there are people, celebrities, famous, rich, going out and buying ranches.
oh yeah,
Is that a part of the problem where you
yeah.
would they okay.
Yeah, it is becoming an issue. They're not necessarily buying dude ranches. Like the one that was kind of like in the media, if you will, was Kanye West. Of course, he
Yeah.
bought that ranch right outside of Cody, and it did used to be a dude ranch. And the shows, especially like Yellowstone, drove a lot of people to Montana and Wyoming. And it also paired in time with COVID, of course. But yeah, a lot of people are buying up these big ranches and they're not doing anything with them, which also causes issues, especially in the ranching community. Like right now, we're fighting a huge drought issue in the northwestern states, which also is leading to big issues with forage production and hay being available. Cattle markets are at the highest they've probably ever been. I can say that pretty confidently, but we don't have the means to be able to feed them through the winter because we don't have hay.
Because people are not producing hay on these ranches.
Yeah. A lot of
Oh,
them, aren't producing hay. They're not raising cattle on these lands. It causes a lot of fires too because land's not being managed. There's not cattle grazing it, or not
wow.
even just cattle, livestock in general.
Yeah.
Whether that's sheep or goats or cattle, horses. There's a multitude of different livestock that helps with that. But yeah, it causes economical issues, and environmental issues as well.
So what would you suggest as a part of a solution for that or
I think the solution would be, people really maybe hiring people that know how to manage the land and being willing to open the doors to livestock opportunities or anything of that nature, because there's a lot of money to be made in that world right now. There really is. But you have to know how to manage it. You have to know how to produce and take care of the land, not just develop it either. That becomes an issue for sure, especially with these big places being bought up. But
people need to know these things? I would have no idea that this is happening. A
yeah.
hay
And that's the
shortage?
hard part of the agriculture community too, is, they don't advocate. They kind of, I mean, they do to an extent, but they're concerned with what's going on in their world and with what's right in front of them. And,
Right.
yes, they know that there's issues out there and outstanding, but they could, are also trying to make a living doing what they're doing, and they have to pour what they have into what's in front of them and what puts food on the table.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think also there, from what me and Dieta have noticed when we travel to rural areas is there isn't much uh, communication of the outside world of like social media. And I know the word social media, people hear it and they're just like, what is this like annoying modern thing?
Yeah.
But it really is how we socialize and communicate and advertise. And when we go places and we want to we are like, hey, let's talk about you, let's share whatever you're doing. um they're just like, no.
Yeah. We just need, yeah, they get concerned, and it's a very private thing for a lot of people, especially an older generation, which is surprising. But having grandparents that were kind of that generation, and knowing a lot of people that are just trying to also get the point across to them that it's like, no, this is for educational purposes. It's not to,
Yeah.
because they're trying to be humble, especially if they have a lot, or they try to keep their cards close to their vest to try and make sure that it doesn't get taken away from them, and,
Right.
Yeah.
and for whatever reason, whether somebody comes in and buys it up, or they lose a lease, or whatever it might be.
Well, just thinking
Yeah.
about trying to protect some of these lands, the main avenue that historic hotels have is by becoming a landmark, whether it's national
Mhm.
or city. Is there anything like that that exists for these ranches?
Many of our ranches actually are on the National Historic Register, which is wildly beneficial. But a lot of our ranches do actually sit and operate on public lands. So you can't do that.
Ah,
It has to be on private property in order to establish those historic registers. And so, from my knowledge, don't quote me on that. I could be incorrect there. But from my knowledge, they have to be on public land or private property. And so, but a lot of them, are on public lands and rely on public lands. And so they have to try and, follow the rules of the government, if you will, and make sure that they're, crossing all their T's and dotting their I's to make sure that they can still operate.
Right. So that's definitely a challenge in preserving these properties.
Yeah.
Are there any other challenges that go in with these, especially the ones that have been operating for decades at this point?
I think you look at it from also just a sustainability standpoint of cabins fall down, logs rot, and having to keep the upkeep on the buildings. Most of the ranches now that were of, the Centennial era, they are pretty well updated in terms of like electrical, plumbing, those type of things. But you run into a lot of issues, because they're old. And so updating those things and trying to bring them, to kind of also quality standards of the current generation and modern era of, whether it's bathrooms or bedding or lighting or whatever, to stay relevant, but also traditional all at the same time. So those are issues. I mean, obviously the upkeep of these buildings and properties is a lot, and it's expensive, especially in today's world. And then also, you just run into, especially that public lands thing. We have a ranch actually operates and is owned, the land itself is owned by Grand Teton National Park, and their 100-year concession came up this year. And, so they had to go through a process that literally no one in 100 years or ever, honestly, had to go through with that property, and to renew to be able to continue operating their dude ranch, and so multiple different things that we face, in just the evolution of time that causes preservation issues. And so, there's a lot of great, like I said, people out there that really want to keep the mission going and keep dude ranches alive. But we sometimes work with very limited resources.
Are there any misconceptions about dude ranches that you'd like to correct to the public?
That it's not burgers, or it's not beans. It's not a can of beans over a campfire. That is one thing that, like, it's a huge misconception, and it baffles me. Like, that I'm just like, come on, guys. Like, that was like wagon train status, okay?
Yeah.
And just the fact that you don't have to be one, you don't have to be a guy. You do not have to be male to go to a dude ranch. And also, yes, the food side of it, like, we're going to feed you more than just beans over a campfire. Okay. I promise. And
I actually like beans. So I was like,
yeah, they're a great source of fiber, but you know what? Like, we will feed you more than that. I promise.
Okay.
And then also, I think just the fact that, like, you don't have to have horse experience, you don't have to have any experience with this lifestyle. That's the whole point of these places in order to come enjoy this. You just have to have a desire to step out of your comfort zone a little bit and go see some beautiful country that you may never see again in your life. And you're going to go see a country that most people have never even seen in their life, and go places that only a horse can take you. And so, just having that open mind to try something new. And dude ranches truly offer something for anyone. And I mean, like, 6-month-olds to 99-year-olds. Like, I mean, there is something anywhere for anybody. And that's what the association does, is we help people find those right ranches, because we want you to go somewhere that you're going to be comfortable. We want you to go where you're going to get the experience that you want. And we want our ranch to be able to provide that for you, our ranches. And they don't want you there if you're looking for something that they don't offer, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be there, and so that's a big part of what we do. And our role is helping match people to those places. So.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that the association does that maybe people don't realize that you're a resource for?
Yeah. I mean, employment. We have an entire employment page on our website where people can go find dude ranch jobs. And again, to work on the horse side of things, yes, you have to have horse experience, but pretty much anything else, no. They will train you. It's a great way to get into that lifestyle. It's a great seasonal opportunity. Speaking from experience, it's a great job before you go into the real world. And it'll ruin the real world for you. But It's so the employment resources are huge. We provide an email list that lists like discounts and deals that our ranches offer. We are a multitude of resources, even for people that aren't members of our association. We have vendors that we can recommend. We have partners that we work with. For our ranches, obviously, we provide a slew of membership benefits for being a member. But yeah, there's a lot of things. But the biggest thing we do is we're a free resource for people trying to plan dude ranch vacations or even just learn about
it. Our theme this summer is Cosmic Summer. We have been talking a lot about like the skies and aliens and sightings. Since you're on a ranch and we hear that there's a lot of sightings in areas like that, have you ever seen anything or experienced anything bizarre?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, the first time I ever saw Starlink, I thought the world was ending. Okay.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even think about that.
We don't know what that is. Like, yes, I have Starlink. That's the whole reason we're connected right now. But when that first came out and like when I first saw the satellites in the sky, I was like, well, that's aliens. We're all gonna like, this is wild. Because we didn't know. Like, I mean, that's a misconception. I'm sure that Elon Musk doesn't love either. But I've personally never had anything happen like that. But I do know if you look up Averill's Flathead Lake Ranch, it's up, or Flathead Lake Lodge. It's in Montana. Doug Averill himself, who is one of the owners and founders of that ranch, has had extraterrestrial experiences. And there's an article on it. And I'm not going to speak to it because I will get all the details wrong. But just look it up. And it should, and then you can link it in the show notes. But it's wild. It's a wild story.
Oh, I can't wait to read it.
Some of the stories I've read with ranches or with anyone out in open land, there's
a wild world out here.
It's a wild world.
It is the Wild West.
Yes.
So.
Do you also, I have another question before our official last question is, do people reach out to you to write articles about Dude Ranch Association and the fact that you're the head lady of it? Like, I mean, I know that's, you know what I mean? Because it is really impressive.
I do have a lot of people that obviously reach out to want to write about Dude Ranch vacations and that kind of stuff. About me personally, not really, which is fine. I mean, yes, it's always just great promotion for the association. That's, usually why I say yes to a lot of these things, but truly like just getting to tell the story of Dude Ranches and the history. And then I have obviously a very deep history with the association itself and also Dude Ranches. My folks met on a Dude Ranch. I was raised on a Dude Ranch. I was a scholarship recipient through our foundation. And ultimately that's how I got here. And I mean, truly I've built my career at a very young age, into this. And so in this industry, and that's amazing.
Okay, cool. So I'm so happy we reached out to learn about you as well as the Dude Ranching, because I think that should happen more. Well, you are a very interesting person. And I just think that that's not something you see or hear every day. There aren't many women in charge of something like this. So I'm blown away.
No, I've got a friend who always tells me, like, she's like, you really need to look into this because I am pretty sure you are the youngest executive director of a national association in the US. And I'm just like, well, maybe, and definitely a woman. But it's cool. It is definitely, it's very much so an honor to lead an association. That they trusted me at a very young age. I mean, I was 22 when I took the job, and they've trusted me for, 8 years to carry this on and carry a legacy forward that is not a small legacy. And it's been an incredible year. I mean, celebrating our centennial and getting to really share the history of Dude Ranches. But it's been pressure filled for sure, because I'm only going to be alive for one centennial. I can guarantee all the people in my association are only going to be alive for one centennial of the association. So we really wanted to make sure we did it right.
So our last final question that we end all our interviews with: which person from Dude Ranch history would you want to meet for drinks? And what are you drinking? And what Dude Ranch saloon or hotel bar would you meet them in?
Oh, I was actually so excited when I saw this question. So Larry Laram, for sure, the father of Dude Ranching, because I love history. But in terms of Dude Ranch history, I just think that guy was so ahead of his time. Like, he was so smart. He was such an advertiser. Like, he knew how to sell this, and he knew what to create in order to, I mean, he was the president of the association for over 10 years. Like, he was the first president, and then he carried on that role for a long time. And that was really, really cool. And so I would love to meet him. As far as what I would be drinking, I feel like I couldn't have a girly drink if I was drinking with somebody like that. So I'm just going to say, which is still kind of a girly drink, but a Michelob Ultra, because that's the only kind of beer I really like. I'm not a whiskey drinker. I'm just really not. My husband has that category, handled. I drink everything else. Boy, a historical bar saloon. I feel like I should say the Irma in Cody, Wyoming, because it's right across the street from our office, and it's also super historical. But as far as like a ranch bar, the Eaton's Ranch Bar is pretty cool. It's kind of a hole in the wall. And it's just like, for a ranch that has 125 people or can take that many people, it's just like the most relaxed environment. And it is small. Like, so you have to go outside, or you're just really buddied up with everybody. So
Actually, that sounds like a really good time.
Yeah.
yeah, it really does. It really does sound like a good time.
I love that everyone their answers are so personal to their like industry and experience, and then we get to learn about these people and learn about different bars and places to drink. So, Dieta, we got to do a whole country bar crawl one day.
Yes,
absolutely.
We could take you on a Dude Ranch bar crawl.
Dude Ranch bar crawl. Yeah,
I'm just gonna remember when I'm standing outside drinking my drink, if I look up, not to freak out when I see a satellite, because the sky is going to be so clear that I can actually see one.
Exactly. Yes, you can actually see the stars. So,
we love that. That is just, honestly, if that was the only reason to go to a Dude Ranch, I would. Just to like sit and look at the stars, because we don't
it's
see
pretty amazing.
Nothing here. LA has no stars.
We have a ranch in Oregon that is actually rated for its star viewing because it's so far remote. I mean, and it's really not that remote. It's just in a very unpopulated area. And they do have some of the best stargazing. Sylvia's Valley, or the retreat at Sylvia's Valley Ranch. It's amazing. I've been there. They have goats that are caddies for golf.
What?
Look it up. It's really awesome.
Thanks for listening to Hotel History. You can follow us on most social media platforms, Patreon, and Substack by searching for Hotel History or Hotel History Podcast. To connect or collaborate with us, check out our website at hotelhistorypodcast.com. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify so we can reach more listeners.